All right. Well, Haley, thank you so much for being in our show today, Level Up series with Rosie Hayer. For everyone who's watching, we have a special guest today, Haley Gant from Quest Trust IRA from Houston, Texas. Now, those who don't know you, Haley, share with everyone, how did you end up being IRA specialist? You're a certified IRA specialist, and also share with me, how did you end up through the journey? I know your family's in real estate. You could have picked anything, right? Like real estate is such a wide industry. So share with me, take it away.
It is, yeah. And so I feel very fortunate to have ended up where I am at Quest here today, because I do get to do a lot of education for investors of, a lot of things that they probably would not have heard about unless they found us. So kind of how I ended up here, I've actually been with Quest for about 4 years now. I started almost right out of college.
Yeah.
But my parents are entrepreneurs. My parents are investors here in Houston. If you guys know the bright yellow billboards that say "We buy ugly houses," that's Homevestors. My parents started as a Homevestors franchise actually in 1999. So today they're actually the third oldest franchise in the country, and which is really cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and I'm an only child, so I had no choice but to grow up surrounded by everything real estate. When I was in kindergarten, actually, is when my parents quit their corporate jobs. I think the story is that they went to Vegas for the weekend, and then on Monday they started investing into real estate.
What happened in Vegas? Did I tell you?
Yeah, right. Got to go on a quick vacation first,
Oh my God. Did they attend any event in Vegas, or they just went on a vacation and boom, they're like, we're not working anymore?
Yeah, I think my dad went to a real estate training seminar, and the next week he walked into his job and quit and decided, I want to start investing in real estate.
How
Yeah.
powerful. Fantastic. So entrepreneur family. So what was it growing up in a family where, how old were you when they made this transition, by the way? I didn't get to ask.
Yeah, so I was in kindergarten. I was pretty young. I remember like in like first and second grade, like riding around properties with my parents, going out to dinner would be like, me sitting there with the kids menu and my parents talking about all of their properties. Like this house did this seller's disclosure went through today, this property sold, this tenant blew up this house. And so my dad primarily does the buying and selling, and my mom oversees the management side of everything. So as my mom would be like driving me to dance practice and all these places, I would always hear the other end of those phone calls of her dealing with the contractors, dealing with the tenants. That was just my life growing up. I didn't really appreciate it until I got a little bit older. And I realized, once I got into college, and it's funny that you ask, I went to Texas A&M, wanted to be a vet my whole life because I love animals. I mean, still do, but I made it about halfway through my first chemistry class freshman year, dropped it and changed my major. And at that point, I started focusing on business and real estate because it just became so much more realistic at that point. And I realized at that point that I had a lot of knowledge that a lot of people around me didn't have just from growing up around it my entire life. And
you said something so powerful. Okay, let me take you back. So take me back to the days when you were a kindergartner. You were sitting on a dinner table, and you're seeing your dad present the properties, talk about, like, this is all gibberish to a kindergartner. Like, you're very young, and I have a 10-year-old son, and he hears our conversations. I'm very intrigued by what you just said. So you have kids menu in front of you. You're probably playing some games or doing some scribbles. What was going through your mind? Like, you were listing all this unknown, like your friends probably didn't talk houses, seller disclosures, right? So what was it like being a child? And how did you connect the dots between mom and dad having different conversations? Walk me through a child's mind.
Yeah. So, and it's funny, when my dad actually really loves this story. So like with Homevestors, the way that they get leads is there's like a lead phone. When someone calls in that 1-800 number on the billboard, it gets rotated out. So my parents had this cell phone. It was called the rotation. And I knew that anytime that phone rang, that phone had to be answered. So if they were like in the room, or if the phone was in the kitchen and it started ringing, I would literally pick it up and run through the house and be like, rotation.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and
so you understood the important tasks early on. What's most important? Okay.
Yeah, I even a few times thought about answering it, but I'm like, I was way too young. Like, there's no way.
No way.
I actually did when I was older, and I worked for them a little bit. But, growing up, it was just like, one of the things that I remember most is that I always had to go to summer camp. You know, a
Huh.
lot of my friends around me, their parents would, you know, they'd have like a stay-at-home mom or something like that, where, you know, they didn't have to go to daycare after school. They didn't have to go to summer camp. And I honestly really like hated it. I didn't understand why I had to go to summer camp, why my parents had to work every day. But then the older I got, the more I realized that, hey, I've actually seen them grow pretty much like their this little empire that they have from the ground up, from absolutely nothing into a really big, well-respected, you know, business that they have
Yeah.
today. And
Yeah.
just the older I got, like the more I realized that, hey, like my parents are actually pretty cool. Like my dad's been on Fox News. He, you know, I go to events and I'm like, oh, you know, my dad's Eddie Gant, and they're like, oh, they like their demeanor changes. And so it's really cool to also, you know, have traits of their personalities that have helped made them successful. And as I've gotten older and now I'm an IRA specialist and teach people about IRAs, you know, I can see a lot of their qualities and the hardworking, like entrepreneur skills that they have rubbed off on me because, again, I was an only child. I had no choice but to just grow up surrounded by everything.
Fantastic. Oh my God, how inspirational.
Yeah.
So, now you're saying a lot of things, and I feel like people would appreciate knowing you and connect with your story because it's so
Mhm.
intriguing. You know, there's so many only children out there. You know, they're the only son, only daughter, and they also have entrepreneurial families. So, share with me, how did you connect dots between your mom and dad having two different parts of the transactions? Because being in real estate, I understand having the property presentation and property analysis is a whole different game than actually managing the whole transaction towards the closing. It's two different
Mhm.
skill sets. What strengths did you see in both of them? And would you be okay with share with us, how did dad rub off on you and how did mom rub off on you?
Oh yeah. So I am my dad created over in like a female version, pretty much.
Tell me about that.
And you know, it's because like my mom is really good with like the financials, the management, you know, kind of just overseeing like all the property managers and things like that. But
Yeah.
my dad is the people person. He's the one that goes out, you know, like makes the offers, and he speaks a lot for, you know, real estate events. He actually speaks a lot with Quest events, you know, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Um, but I've found that like my strengths really cater towards the public branding, the education, the speaking. And I've found that just, you know, like when I started at Quest, you know, we'll kind of back that up for a second. My
Yeah.
parents have been Quest clients since 2004. So basically, since Quest opened their doors, my parents rolled over their IRAs at that point. So Quest, I actually went to that office when I was like really small, um, ironically enough. But
Wow. Okay.
yeah. So when I graduated college, Quest basically saw that my dad had this daughter that was out in the real world and basically kind of recruited me at that point. And when I realized, I was like, hey, I have this whole skill set of real estate knowledge, and now I get to apply it to IRAs, which there's some really cool things that you can do with an
Yeah.
IRA with real estate investments. It just like, in my mind, kind of like took off like wildfire at that point. It just made sense. You know, I already knew all the real estate stuff
You
and just
just knew, like you just in the moment know, okay, this is it, right?
yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, and that's like one piece of advice that, you know, I would give, you know, with parents with young kids, you know, they may not appreciate it now. You may feel like you're working a lot of long hours, you know, getting your business off the ground, just doing all the things that real estate investors do. But,
Yeah.
you know, your kids, once they get older, they hopefully will appreciate it. And, you know, all those dinner conversations growing up where I heard about the tenants doing this property manager doing this, well, we've got to do this to this house, really just kind of gave me almost like an intuition. To just kind of understand a lot of real estate things. You know, I've done some deals myself, but even before I started doing my own deals, I was like, I think this is the answer to the question. And then as I would go and research it a little bit more and like the comps and like things like that, it just kind of, it all kind of aligned really. It's kind of cool.
Wow. So basically, you're saying that by growing up, you're talking some real good content, Haley. Like a lot of people walk around, like even me as a mother, right? I'm
Mhm.
a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter-in-law, I'm a daughter, and I'm a sister, right? And we all have a relationship to fulfill, right? Like that fulfills us back. And yet we have this creativity oozing out of us that, when the wildfire that you mentioned, like that's when the time stops, you're like,
Mhm.
okay, the time does not determine when you start and stop. You just indulge and devote it to your craft. And
Mhm.
during that, when we snap out of that reality and live our relationships, I personally sometimes feel a little guilty that am I showing up enough, right? And
Mhm.
then when I showed up more there and it's taking away from my passion, then I feel torn that I'm not feeling like myself or put to use to be at great potential of myself. So I
Mhm.
want to ask you, it seems like I can tell you're your dad, like people's person talking, and I can clearly you're doing so well. I'm really enjoying our conversation, by the way.
Thank you.
So share with me, how did your mom and dad create that balance, and how did you receive it? Or did they even try to create a balance between it or made you a part of it? I know all answers could be right and wrong circumstantially for different people. I want to hear specifically about you. How was that balance created? How did you ever feel left out, or about you wish that you had different experiences? Should we wish we did something different? And when was the tipping point happen that no, whatever happened happened great? So walk me through it.
Yeah, and kind of going back to like, starting in, because again, I was in kindergarten, and I remember my elementary school, they had like an after school program where you would like go to the gymnasium with all the other kids, and then eventually your parents would come pick you up,
Yeah,
at like 6:30 when they got off of work.
yeah.
And I never really understood. I was like, why can't you just come pick me up from school? And so, and of course, like me being an only child, I was kind of like an oddball of a kid, all the smart ones are, I guess, whatever. Um, but I never really understood, and I didn't really get it until I was in high school. And at that point, I was old enough to kind of realize that, hey, my parents are pretty successful. And, one of the big things is they host a really big networking event every month, or pre-COVID they did. And, on the small side these days, this event was like 800 to 1,000 people every month in Houston. It's the largest real estate networking event in the state of Texas. And once I kind of saw that, and I saw how like people would react when they realized that, like, hey, this is who your dad is. At that point, I really started to realize, and all of those younger years of me not getting it, me kind of being like, hey, why do I have to go to summer camp? Like, why can't we just hang out all day? And now I work all day, so I understand that.
Uh-huh.
Um, but it in my mind, it was worth it. They were in that time that they were quitting their jobs, taking a risk, starting the business from the ground up. Yeah, I wish maybe they would have spent a little more time with me, but it's not like I didn't have that relationship there. I was in competitive dance teams my whole life growing up, and I really loved it. I mean, even to this day, I like still dance around my house and like
Oh,
do yoga and
beautiful.
things like that. But I wouldn't have had that opportunity to be on the dance team that I was on if my parents didn't work as hard as they did. So,
Fantastic. So
it's a trade-off, but as the kids get older, really my parents run their business in a very like ethically way. They're good people, straight shooters, and that has rubbed off on me in my professional life now, and it's kind of gotten me to where I am today. So, might have felt a little sad as a kid sometimes, but it's once you mature a little bit, you really understand it and why that was necessary.
that's very, very nice. Thank you. I connected with you at so many levels. Not only, I was not an only child, but having a brother who wants to play with whole different toys than you, it's almost
Mhm.
like having a different gender sibling is like only child thing, right? But I connected.
Yeah.
I am so glad you shared that, because somewhere in your conversation, I found ease. Being a realtor and an investor who is running
Mhm.
full time with my husband, like I'm literally your parents in a different world, and I'm raising a single child. And it's coincidence that I'm interviewing, out of all people, I'm interviewing you today, right? So you said something really powerful there. You said by the time you went to high school and you were able to actually acknowledge in the physical world how your parents had made an impact, you were able to feel proud of it and you were able to appreciate it. So it almost
Mhm.
seems like it is a responsibility of a parent as well, if they are going that route of following their passion and they are making unconventional choices of being out and about and making sure the kid is along. It is
Mhm.
almost a responsibility of a parent to do their best as well, so that looking back, the children can appreciate rather than feeling like that was a gap that they could have filled
Mhm.
up with other experiences, right?
Yeah,
You know why I
definitely.
say that, Haley? Because almost 9 years ago, my son was, of course, 9 years ago, he was barely 6, 7 months old. I would say he was probably now, I think 10 months, 12 months. And 10 years ago is when we started our entrepreneurial journey with my husband. You know, we went through multiple businesses. Ultimate real estate was always the ground of it.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time that I know I didn't want to pay a babysitter, to babysit my child because I was working 16 hours a day. And
Yeah.
I had my mom stay with me to watch my son. And
Mm-hmm.
there was this event that I had to do, and that event was going to be for 11 days. But for that event I had to prepare. It was not in real estate, it was in a different industry. I had to prepare almost a month in advance to be prepared for those 11 days because all the revenue for the year, 40% of the revenue for the year was going to come in those 11 days, right?
Yeah.
So I remember that time I had to make this hard choice. Either I send off my mom lives abroad, right? So I send off my son with my mom or I keep him with me. And it was such a, like, I remember it didn't hit me until I said goodbye to him at the airport, right? And I
Yeah.
almost felt like that, why am I punishing him for my dreams? Like he wants to be just around mom and dad. And it was such a very difficult situation for me. And of course, as a mother, I remember feeling emotional. But you know what happened, Haley? I remember by the time I came home and my husband was driving back, the moment I opened the door, I turned back around and I told my husband, I said, you know what? Now I'm going to make sure it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember,
Exactly.
I was like, okay, I made the sacrifice. I've put myself through this. I'm putting him through this. Now I'm going to make sure it's worth it. And we doubled our revenue in those 11 days. And I couldn't,
Nice.
yeah, so we came back. So I really appreciate you sharing that with me because it gives me a sense of comfort that my responsibility is to do my best so he can grow up and look back and appreciate that. So
Yeah.
that is a little sidetrack from IRA, but I really love knowing you today.
But it's
Yeah.
so true though, because like there are a lot of times in our lives where we have to decide, do I want to make this sacrifice? And, especially when your child is like 10 months old, you never get that time back when they're like a little potato almost. They're so
Yeah.
small, they turn into a human.
Yeah.
I don't have kids, but my friends have kids. So I definitely understand that. But it also comes down to, if I make this sacrifice now, the
Yeah.
rewards, the benefits down the road will be hopefully worth it. And for you, obviously it made it worth it because you decided that, hey, I'm going to make this sacrifice and I'm going to make it worth it.
Yeah.
It's not just going to happen on its own. But and I will say, once those children grow up and they realize how expensive things are, that not everyone's parents can just go out and send them to a 4-year school or go out and buy them a nice car. I think that's something that when I realized that, I really started to appreciate it. And, like,
Oh, nice.
even like in high school, I had jobs. I worked over the summers. I enjoyed having extra money. I worked all through college. I was like a manager at Express at the mall.
How
But I
sweet.
worked because I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed kind of like leading people and kind of helped to give me those like valuable customer service skills that are important no matter what industry you're in.
I'm going to make sure my son meets you, Haley. You have some really great influence, and I think so many people are going to watch today. All right. Now, for our audience, thank you so much for being so generous and open-minded. And I loved our conversation. I didn't even know where the first few minutes flew away. So let's go back to our audience, right? So people who are watching us, they're on different phases of life, right? Sometimes are first-time home buyers. The reason I was so compelled to have this conversation with you, Haley, is because I go to sleep afraid that I'm helping so many people cash out equities. As you and I both know, we have been going uphill in real estate market for the last 7-8 years. This has been the best time in real estate historically for so many homeowners, especially in Texas, right? As
Yeah.
well, because of the relocation. I'm afraid they're cashing out hundreds of thousands of dollars out of their property, but we don't need all that as a down payment towards next house. Because you and I both know after a certain point, putting any more down is just basically throwing money away.
Mm-hmm.
Even in real estate investment or buying a home, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to know, what can people do when they cash out equities out of their home? How can they redistribute their finances? Like, I know you're gonna spill some really golden beans, so I'm gonna ask my questions in general up front so you can structure your conversation. So the few things I would like for you to touch on is, number one, with all the information that you have in you to share, what is the one thing you wish you can just go to sleep and implant in people so naturally everybody can just, like, fundamental knowledge everybody needs to have?
Mm-hmm.
Second, what would be a game changer for people, like if they understood IRA at a higher level? right? And also, who do you think is the demographics of people? Demographics in terms of the buying power or their real estate relationship,
Mhm.
who would benefit the most from it? Take it away.
Yeah. So, one thing, if I could get this message across to as many people as possible, is that there there's never like not enough to get started. A lot of people think, well, I don't have enough money to invest in a real estate. I don't have enough knowledge. I know enough to be dangerous. And we were all there at some point in our lives, but and along with that, kind of having the right knowledge of all of the different tax advantages that you can get with your retirement funds, because ultimately all of our goals, especially you guys out there that are watching this that are in real estate, that are real estate investors, you're not a real estate investor so you can have a 9 to 5 job when you're 80 years old. You are a real estate investor because you've like chosen to take these like risks and things now, sacrifices now, so
Mhm.
ultimately you can have multiple streams of income and have financial freedom and retire and spend time with your family.
Yeah.
So there's so many ways that you can get yourself there, but there comes a time in everyone's career, everyone's entrepreneurial like goal or journey, where you're going to be making decent money and you're going to be paying a lot of taxes probably.
Yep.
What a lot of people don't know is that with a self-directed IRA, you can hold some of your real estate investments in there and potentially avoid taxes altogether on these investments.
Say that
And
again. So that again. Say that again. A lot of people don't sell their investment properties. I'm sharing it for all the audiences out there who are like, well, I don't know if I want to throw all that money away in taxes. This property is generating me income. Let me just leave it there. And they don't even redistribute or reinvest. Say that again, Haley, the last part. A lot of people don't even realize.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that you have this ability with an IRA to hold privately held assets. So most people's IRAs only hold stocks, mutual funds, CDs, investments that like you really don't have control over where your money is invested.
Yep.
At the end of the day, as well as you might know the stock market, if something happens on Wall Street, you have no control over what happens with your investment. Or there's the alternative side with what we do at Quest, where we teach investors how to invest into real estate with their old 401k or IRA funds. So you could potentially buy, say, a rental property with your IRA with money you might already have sitting in a retirement account, not doing much. You could buy a piece of real estate. You could even be a private lender and just be 100% passive. And all of those proceeds from those investments that you're doing with your IRA, they go back into your IRA. So you don't see it right now, but it goes back in without being taxed. So, the government created IRAs in the 70s to give Americans incentives to put money into an account and have it grow with special tax advantages. So when we reach retirement age, we have enough to retire on. But the way that most people traditionally have been taught to save for retirement does not work.
Okay,
Um, I,
okay, hold that thought. This is so important. People need to really understand this. So
mhm,
you're saying that people, general public does not know that they can use their 401k money, which they think is going to be penalized if they take it out. They can
mhm,
actually take that money and redirect into IRA accounts and
mhm.
buy real estate investments with it and have the income from that coming in and put it back into the IRA and wipe taxes 100%. Means they can be completely tax free.
Correct.
Correct,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Okay, and then so they don't have to use IRA just for stocks, bonds, and mutual funds,
Mhm.
but they can use real estate investment as well.
Yes, exactly. And that's what we see a lot of our clients do. In all honesty, about half of the transactions that we fund at Quest are people using their IRAs to be private lenders on other people's deals. So even if you're new to real estate, maybe you're not ready to like just go out and like buy that property just
Yeah.
yet. One thing that really makes this doable and achievable for a lot of people is to leverage your network. Go out there and align yourself with other people with similar goals and ethics as you, and find ways that you can maybe use your IRA to be a private lender on their deal. This allows that real estate investor to get a potentially unlimited sources of private funding for their deals, but you now also have a safe and secure investment with your IRA. And if you structure it properly, that investment, that loan that you do with your IRA is secured by that piece of real estate. So, if the borrower stops paying, your IRA could foreclose and take that property as collateral, if they stop paying, just like a bank would.
Wow. Okay. 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 Hold on. Hold on. Let's walk it away. This is golden. Oh my God. Okay. So to all my listeners out there, please pay attention to this. Haley just said that if most people don't buy investments because they're like, oh, I don't know if I want to deal with a tenant, or I don't want to deal with maybe owner finance or seller finance, or I don't want to privately lend money, because sometimes people they don't know where to start, right? They know real estate is going to be beneficial for them in earning wealth in long term, but they just don't know where to start. So you're saying that they can actually make income off of the investments and not only have it tax free if they lend money privately through IRA and use real estate as a collateral. And if the money is not returned, IRA can actually foreclose on the property.
Correct.
So the litigations is all out of the way, right? So all the fear around how I'm going to go about getting the property back, because that's the benefit of being a private lender, right? The risk is that for lending somebody $90,000, you can be acquiring a $200,000 property if the property is not paid back, right?
Yeah.
So the risk is mitigated altogether when you have such a big power behind you.
Exactly. And again, it really just comes down to, because at Quest, we act as the custodian over your IRA. We can't actually provide the investment for you, but we facilitate the transaction. You go out there, utilize people in your network, align yourself with other people that maybe have some experience that, are also doing these types of investments. Then when you have questions about, okay, how does the IRA actually work with this transaction? That's when you call me. And that's when
okay. Yeah. Okay. Exactly. Oh, I like that. Awesome. Now, so I'm sure you have no wonder, right? Like father, like daughter, right? You guys have spoken to thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, if I have to be correct, maybe millions by now. But all the people that you have conversations with, and you give such a powerful content, and they definitely know, like right now I'm jumping out of my chair to really have an off-screen conversation with you about some of my properties. What do you think is the main reason people don't take advantage of it?
There's not enough education out there, and not just about self-directed IRAs, but about retirement in general. Going out and doing these presentations pretty much all over the country, we run into a lot of people that most people that we meet, and you see the light bulb click in their head. We're explaining it and it doesn't make sense. We explain it again, and then you see a light bulb click and they're like, oh, this is cool. And they're like, I wish I would have known about this 10 years ago. And really, Quest is one of the biggest educators about self-directed IRAs in the country. There is no other custodian that does as much education as we do. And it's really just a matter of have we reached you yet? But I even saw, I taught a class the other week called Get Your Retirement on Track in 2020. And
yes, I watched the video on Facebook. That was so fun. You know what? We're going to add the link to that video. I think people should watch that.
Yes. And so, at Quest, we talk a lot about self-directed IRAs. Here's what you can do, the types of accounts. But I wanted to go in and say, okay, how many Americans are actually on track to retire? How many have no idea what's going on? And where do you need to be in order to get yourself to it's actually $1.5 to $1.7 million that is estimated that you need in order to be able to retire and have enough to live on until you eventually pass things on to your heirs. So 1.5 to $1.7 million, that is a huge number. That is really frightening to a lot of people because they have $30,000 to $40,000 in an IRA and they're 30 years old. And they're like, how the heck do I get there? And that's where really self-directed IRAs, in my opinion, come in, because
maybe that's the reason, Haley, you just mentioned it. I think that realization, oh my God, I have not been doing it. Maybe they feel like it's too late, and that message has to be repetitively brought in front of them that it's never too late.
Exactly. And there's never and not enough to get started. If someone says, well, I don't have enough to invest in real estate, you might not have enough to buy a $500,000 property, but you've got enough to go out there, find a property subject to. You've got enough to maybe partner it with other funds, be a private lender. And, once you start doing a deal, it grows a little bit. You do another deal, it grows a little bit more. Then it just becomes easier and easier the more you kind of learn about all these options that you have.
Yeah, and Haley, that's where our values really match, because at our company, at the Hair Group, my husband and I, we run our real estate team. I was like, anybody can buy and sell house. Any realtor can help you buy and sell house, right? But that doesn't make my relationship forever with you. Ultimately, my goal is that anybody working with us should build wealth. Even if they're first-time home buyers, we should help them buy properties in a way that they can look back and say, you know what, every time we transacted with them, we grew our net worth. So
Mhm.
that their children tomorrow are going to great schools and there's a gratitude. And I think that's the service and a purpose that's bigger than ourselves that can keep us going. Because when we're only fulfilling our needs, we run out of that motivation at one point because you tapped out, right?
Mhm.
And so I have a question. Out of all the things that you could have picked in real estate through investments, you could have been a designer, you could have been a project manager, a contractor, land development specialist, you could have been a realtor, right? Or just straight up investor, right? Or a lender. You
Mhm.
chose to be certified IRA specialist.
I did,
Tell
yes. It
me
actually
why.
chose me. It's
Yeah,
really,
yeah, like, and you look
yeah,
seem to be
and
thriving there, and
mhm.
you have such an effortless energy about it.
Thank
Tell
you.
me, where does it come from? What do you connect with in this line of work?
Mhm. And I always like to use the example of like a salesperson, because recently I have transitioned more into our like marketing, business development, public branding, because that's honestly what I'm really good at. But for the past 4 years with Quest, as an IRA specialist, we are the first point of contact when someone opens up an account. They call in, they're like, what's a self-directed IRA? How do I use it?
Yeah.
Those calls go to us so we can take them through a true like proper consultation, just kind of lay it out on the line, let them know how it works. But I really, really enjoy what I do because we are actually adding value to people's lives. And as I've been with Quest for 4 years, I actually have some clients that, kind of I got in like my first year, and I have seen them really grow wealth in their IRAs. They're doing deals. They call me and they're like, hey, Haley, I did another deal with my IRA. I'm ready to like move some more funds over. And, I always like to use the example, I'm not out here like selling couches. I'm not out here selling furniture, I'm not out here trying to hit a quota just because I'm trying to hit sales numbers. Yes, getting sales numbers is great, but that's not really why I do it. And like I always tell people, you can tell that I get really excited when I talk about IRAs because like there's so many ways that no matter what your skill set is, how much you have or how little you might have, there's a way that this can benefit you in some form or fashion. And having, I guess, the skills to teach people about that is really fulfilling in my opinion. I really enjoyed it. It's work, but it doesn't feel like work. I really enjoy that this is what I get to do every day.
Haley, it sounds like when you say that, yeah, I heard you mention sales number. It sounds like that sales number are important to you because you're able to see the impact that you're having, the
Mhm.
measure of the impact you're having. What keeps
Mhm.
you going is the value that you're adding.
Mhm.
And I think when value is backed up by the size of the impact you're having, your work speaks for yourself. You don't have to tell people what you're about to do. Your work has already spoken
Mhm.
for you, and I think you guys are doing a phenomenal job. I honestly think when I think of IRA, you guys are the first person who comes to my mind. Even after I had IRA accounts before
Mhm.
meeting you guys, I didn't know I had IRA accounts. My husband he always does all those stocks and all that cool stuff, right?
Mhm.
I'm primarily real estate. I just don't understand stocks. My father-in-law is in stocks, and I
Me
have
either.
yeah.
I get it.
I was like, I don't get it. I was like, why do I want to give myself a high blood pressure, low blood pressure every time that turns green or red?
Yeah, and it's so crazy because like the stock market, it goes up, it goes down, it crashes. I can always tell how the stock market is doing by how busy our phones are because anytime it goes down, our phones start ringing more.
Ringing more.
But and like at my age, like I'm 27 right now. If I have all my money in the stock market and it takes a 30% loss, like several people did earlier this year, I have time for that to recover. But if you're like 50, 60 years old and you're already looking to start living off of your retirement funds and you lose 30% of your wealth, it's crazy. It is, I don't know. It's
It's not
just,
time to recover. It's just going to
yeah.
sit there, or yeah, that's tough.
Mhm.
And Haley, you made a good point that, well, kudos to people. Like, I'm sure you and I are going to agree on this. Kudos to people who are understanding the market well, and that's all they do, and they figured out the game. But you and I both know it is a full-time craft. If somebody's making decent money in stocks, even daytime trading or long-term, it's
Mm-hmm.
their full-time craft. Like they're watching candlesticks, patterns, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I just don't have the bandwidth for it. To me, it's a whole different craft. I barely mastered real estate. Okay, great. So
Mm-hmm.
share with me. I need to take you back to this little stigma that we just are barely coming out of and going back in out COVID.
Yes.
Elephant in the room, right? In last since March 15th, when the shelter shutdown was declared in Austin, I'm sure. How did
Mm-hmm.
that? Tell me, what was your experience of people's relationship with IRA during that time?
Mm-hmm.
And second, I know banks and government has become very lenient around the 401k funds. Like before, within 90 days, you have to replenish the funds to avoid penalty. Now
Mm-hmm.
they're giving you 3 years of forgiveness to repay it back. And
Mm-hmm.
you have mentioned a beautiful relationship between 401k and IRA,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not going to be taxed to get your money out of 401k. So I think there's something I need to know more about here. And
Mm-hmm.
share with me. Seems like you have something to say. Tell me about it.
Yeah, definitely. So when COVID kind of hit, like, mid-March, and the stay-at-home like orders went into effect, kind of like everyone experienced, people were just frozen. No one was doing anything. And if I'm being honest, like, yes, we were still trying to keep our phones ringing, still trying to move money in, just like we're always trying to do. And you know, tax filing deadline is normally April 15th. So January, February, March, April are usually our busiest months of the year. And that stopped, just quit in its tracks. And, in all honesty, if I'm worried about losing my job, if I think I'm going to be laid off, moving my funds into a self-directed IRA and looking for a real estate deal is probably not the very first thing on my mind. And I was very like, I understood that. However, me being the marketing person that I am, I came home right here. I'm in my home office right now. I did about 7 to 8 webinars with other real estate investors, just trying to keep information out there, trying to get investors the most relevant information from other investors that are experienced doing these same things. And that really helped us a lot because, as people are frozen, they're all stuck at home. Our webinar views just shot up.
Shut up.
But and we've seen it pick back up a lot now that the stock market has gone back up a little bit because if all your money was in stocks and it took a hit, a
You
lot of people
froze.
aren't going to move it out at that point. You're going to wait for it to recover a little bit. So we did see a lot of that. But now, we are seeing people that now that their funds have recovered a little bit and they don't want that to happen again,
They're pulling
now
money
we're seeing
out.
other people really explore different options that are safer, that they have more control over. Now, switching gears a little bit, the CARES Act.
Yeah.
Hot topic of conversation for the last couple of months. And, obviously for good reason. But, with the CARES Act, which I think was like 800 pages total, I have not read it. I got the Cliff Notes. But with the CARES Act, you can take up to $100,000 out of your 401k or IRA and without the 10% penalty. Normally, if you take it out before you're 59 and a half, it's taxed and penalized 10%.
Okay.
So,
All right. Repeat that again for me because I want listeners to really understand this.
mm-hmm.
So repeat that one more time. That if you I'm not going to interrupt.
Yes,
You go
I
ahead.
got it. Yes. So with the CARES Act, you can take anytime this year up until December 31st is the deadline. It has to be before the end of this year. You can take up to $100,000 out of your 401k or IRA. And like it goes to you personally, it's a distribution, but you can avoid the 10% penalty. Normally it's taxed and penalized if you take it out early for
How
personal
much
use.
is the tax and penalized?
So the penalty is 10%. The taxes, it's basically added to your MAGI, your modified adjusted gross income for the year, and then you just pay ordinary income taxes on it. So
Okay.
if you're
So
in a
let's
really high tax bracket, you're going to pay more taxes on it.
So let's help the listeners understand how that works. Let's suppose someone has $100,000 in their 401k.
Mm-hmm.
If they take that, let's talk about a traditional scenario. If they would have taken money out before the CARES Act
Mm-hmm.
on $100,000 out of their 401k, they would have been taxed 10% on that. So basically 10,000 of them would evaporate.
Yeah, well, so that's the penalty, not
That's the
including
penalty.
the
Oh,
taxes.
that's just the penalty.
And taxed. Yeah.
Okay. And on top of it, like if $100,000 penalty and taxes included, if you pull the money out and don't return it within 90 days, what kind of loss are we looking at?
It varies. This is usually where I refer people to their CPA to do the tax calculation
Is
for them.
that because of the adjusted gross income?
Yeah,
Okay, because everybody can be in different brackets. But
exactly.
10,000,
And
10% is gone no
taxes,
matter what, right? Penalty is for sure happening.
10%. Yeah.
Okay. Now
But
versus now.
yeah, and so now if you take the distribution up to $100,000, you can avoid the 10% penalty. But not only that, you have up to 3 years to put the funds back in, or you can spread out the taxes, I believe, evenly over the course of 3 years. My 2 cents as an IRA specialist who helps people save for retirement is, if you take advantage of this distribution, and it's technically a hardship distribution, under the CARES Act, find a way to get the funds back in. You've got 3 years. A lot can change in 3 years. And essentially at that point, it's basically an interest-free loan to yourself.
So if you have a property that's not selling, you're looking so cute. You just froze for a minute. Okay, so you're basically saying, let's suppose somebody has a house, right?
Mm-hmm.
They recently just bought the property. They don't have much equity in it, or rather than selling it too low or giving it away if you're in a time crunch, go to your 401k, get your money out, use that money interest free as a down payment through a Roth IRA account, or however you can do investments with it, or you can purchase it interest free for 3 years and find a way to replenish that fund in 3 years, not in 3 months. 3 years.
Yeah. And normally it's actually 60 days. So it's not even 90 days. You have,
Oh, pardon me. Really?
yeah. So
Thank you for
pre-CARES
correcting
Act, it's a 60 days that you have to put it back in. Now it's 3 years. So, and what's cool is normally with like that, it's a 60-day rollover basically, where you take the funds out, then put them back in within that time frame. You have to put the funds back in. You can only do it once. So you can't put it back in pieces at a time normally. With the CARES Act, I believe that you can
replenish
put it
it.
back pieces at
Wow.
a time each year. Now, that being said,
Tell me.
there will probably be like adjustments that need to be done with your taxes. If you've been paying the taxes over 3 years and you pay them back in, you want to make sure that you are working with a knowledgeable CPA that can help make sure that this is reported correctly. But, when all this first came out and there wasn't really a whole lot of guidance on it, I was saying, the people that wrote the CARES Act are probably not the same people that enforce IRS code and regulations.
They never are.
Yeah.
They never are. They figure it out later. They talk later when things don't work out, right? Wow.
Yeah.
What a powerful, powerful, powerful set of
Mm-hmm.
cues and tricks. Amazing. Okay, so for people who found this information very helpful after watching it, what is the easiest, simplest, and the fastest way for them to get started?
Yeah, so honestly, give us a call, shoot me an email. My email, I can spell it out for you, or we can like post it somewhere.
Yeah, we'll put a link up there. Yeah, go ahead, spell it out as well.
Yeah, so my email is just haley.gant@questtrust.com. That's HALEY.GANT@questtrust.com, or give us a call. We also have a really nice feature through our website that if you go to the Quest Trust website, just questtrust.com, you can actually chat live with an IRA specialist at any time in our normal business hours and on Saturdays. So we have different IRA specialists. I'm on the chat on Mondays with the way the schedule currently is, but it's really nice because you can go online, you can chat with us there, we can give you a call.
Mondays are the best days. You know why? Mondays are the best days because oftentimes Mondays is where the work, my husband said something really funny today and I was going to make a post about it, but I think this is a perfect platform to say this. He said, Rosie, why is it that Monday always seems so far away from Friday and yet Friday seems so close to Monday?
Right? Yeah.
So on Mondays, when you feel like Friday is so far away, block 30 minutes, go to questtrust.com, do some IRA work and see how you can make your work a little bit more fruitful and tax-free, right? Amazing.
Yeah.
Anything that I should have asked today, Haley, that you think, I wish I was asked this question and because people can really benefit from it?
Yeah, I mean, really just, so this one little topic alone is usually about 30 minutes of our presentations, but at Quest we have 7 different types of accounts that you can self-direct. A lot of them are retirement accounts, traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs. But I would also, for everyone watching out there, if you are eligible for a health savings account, you do have to have a high deductible health plan through your health insurance in order to put money into a health savings account. But the health savings account is probably one of the most valuable types of accounts that we hold at Quest. And it can be self-directed, just like all of our other IRAs, but it's the only account that when you put money in, it's tax deductible. You can invest it, self-directed, and it grows completely tax-free. But what's really cool, oh, sorry, I was
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
a
yeah,
call.
yeah, I can hear you.
You like disappeared for a second.
Uh-huh.
But what's really cool is you can access those distributions from the health savings account today, completely tax-free, to pay for any of your qualified health expenses.
Okay, so health savings account. How
Mm-hmm.
hard of a deductible are we looking at?
You know, and I should know this. I think there's a number that makes it a high deductible health plan, but it's also more so the way that your health plan is actually classified. I know, like for an employer, it is cheaper to insure your employees on a high deductible health plan versus like a PPO, like full coverage type of plan. We have Blue Cross Blue Shield, so it's actually the way that the health plan is classified. What you could do if you're not sure is you could ask your health plan provider if your plan is HSA compatible.
Okay, so the plan has to be HSA compatible for them to
Yeah.
be able to do that. But if they can figure it out, they can start putting money in there, and that can be a same again self-directed IRA.
Yeah, and you
Wow,
can access the money today completely tax free.
tax
So
free.
if you work it well, you could, you know, build up your HSA, and if your HSA is in place at the time that you're paying for any of your health expenses out of pocket, since the HSA is in place, you can reimburse yourself at any time for those expenses. So
Nice.
basically what I do is I'm growing my HSA right now, and I have a spreadsheet that I keep track of all of my health expenses. So in, you know, a couple of years when I've done some investments and I'm still nowhere near 59 and a half, I can take money out of my HSA completely tax free to reimburse myself for any of my qualified health expenses. Really, really valuable, and it's very underutilized. It's
Okay,
really
so people, two things you're gonna call Haley for. Actually, three
cool.
things. Remember, she has said more tax-free in this video call than anybody else I've spoken to. So watch this again. And
Mhm,
second, remember HSA health savings account and
mhm,
IRAs benefits, and also 401k and your Roth IRA accounts to see how you
mhm.
can pull money out of 401k, put it to use, make more of it, and put it back and replenish it. You know, that's the purpose of money. Money should create more money for you. Wealth should create more wealth. Haley, you're
Exactly.
so amazing. God, I connected with you so beautifully. I can't wait to see you again. And matter of fact, I'm gonna ask you to spend some time with my son. I would love to
Mhm.
have you have a conversation with him and your story with him. You're very
Perfect.
influential.
Yes, I would love to. Yeah. And, you know, we're always here to help, you know, no matter what point of the process you're in, whether you're ready to move your money today or whether you're brand new and just want some more information of, you know, where can you find our education? We're
Yeah.
always here to help. You know, we don't make commissions off of our clients' investments. And, you know, we really pride ourselves on being the experts in all of this IRA jargon and nonsense. We love it. So, you know, we're always here to help. And, you know, especially myself, even though I do more business development now, I still do a lot of consultations. And I would say I'm pretty good at getting through those consultations with our clients and help make it easy and understandable because it's not really that complicated. It just seems like it is on the surface.
You're certainly a spark. I love it. You know what? I would say you are 27 years of real estate experience times
Yep.
two. You have two parents in real estate and you were born in it. So, oh my God, congratulations on your beautiful journey. And what a pleasure spending time with you today, Haley. And I am positive that what we talked about today is going to impact so many people. And please, I would love to know when something new comes up and you feel like the world needs to know about it. I'm
Mhm.
here. I feel like this is the platform where people should be able to. These were the conversations, Haley, I was having on my own with people like you guys. And I was
Mhm.
like, okay, first I have a conversation and then I tell people about it. What if we just recorded our conversation so people can just listen to it at their convenience? So please keep in mind if you think of more stuff that you feel people would find valuable, I would love to get it broadcasted and make a bigger impact together.
Oh, yes, definitely. I would love that. I am always open to talk about any IRA topic and subject. And, there's so many different ways that you can dwell into the different types of investments, things like that. And thank you so much for having me today. This has been a lot of fun. I love your energy as well.
Thank
And, helping other people, helping to get this message out there is always really fulfilling. So thank you so much for having me today.
Oh my God, such a pleasure of ours. Thank you, Haley. And you have a beautiful afternoon today. And I know I'm going to run into you again soon. Until then, have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Haley.
Thank you.
Bye.